live, make sure to smash up that like button, kids. If you haven't already unsubscribed, if you haven't unsubscribed, at least you could do is take the next step and smash up the like button, right? I mean, why not? You're here already. Anyway, welcome to my 0 viewers right now. I realize that today is, I believe it is a federal holiday. It is, they call it Martin Luther King Jr. Day, but it really isn't. It's Michael King Jr. Day, because the person that everyone thinks is Martin Luther King was Michael King Jr. He never changed his name. And, you know, I don't know if we're celebrating his life or his death. You know what I mean? Either I'm thinking really they're kind of celebrating his death, because when they killed him, that's what made him an icon, right? They made him a martyr. And then, you know, everything was in his name. And, you know, that worked for decades and decades. Of course, they needed a new martyr. So we have today, we have St. George Floyd. And St. George Floyd, you know, had funerals all over the country. His family was paid millions of dollars. They get to speak at the Democratic National Committee or something like that. Huge public platform. And St. George Floyd, you have to remember, he died doing what he loved, right? So he was getting high and breaking the law. So I don't know, should you weep for him or should you celebrate? You know, that's never real clear how this goes, right? What we're supposed to do. But yeah, this is a bit of a BS holiday. But of course, the people that run our country, that run America 1.0, think that this is a good idea. So that's what we get. However, you know, there will likely be an America 2.0, and I think it's going to be very, very different from the current its current shape. I think we'll go somewhere very different. That's what I think, but I think a lot of outrageous and radical things. So what else has been going on? I've been like talking to that sports ball guy, DMing him, trying to explain my worldview without sounding like a psychopath. Like here in this environment, I'm completely comfortable saying the world is run by a murder cult that practices pedophilia and has enslaved the entire planet Earth with, you know, fractional reserve banking and fiat currency. You know, I'm comfortable saying that to people who are comfortable hearing it. But, you know, a lot of normies, they can't. They're like, what are you talking about? The planet is run by a murder cult? Yeah, it's run by a murder cult. What are you gonna do? So, and this sort of thing affects. So when I'm challenged in like DMing this guy, trying to explain my worldview, he doesn't. You know, he's like, he disagrees, and he's still very much grounded in normie land. And I'm like, well, you know, I understand the limits of my persuasive ability. I understand the limits of persuasion itself, because unless you're 95% in agreement with me already, you know, and I could maybe sprinkle a few magic words in front of you, and then that'll get you over the hump, get you that last 5%, and you know, and then you can and you'll be persuaded. But most persuasion is really more the person being persuaded, allowing themselves to go, than the ability for someone else to draw you to their point of view. You have to be. There's more coercion than persuasion, and the coercion that works best is starvation and homelessness. You know what I mean? Those two guys, when they show up, you will do whatever the fuck they tell you to do. You know what I mean? In order to avoid in order for you to avoid starvation and homelessness from putting its fucking hands on you, or those you care about, you're going to do a whole lot of things, like a lot of things. So, and that's the ultimate persuasion, right? But if that doesn't touch you, if it's not going to touch you, well, then, you know, you're never going to be persuaded. So it's smarter, it's wiser for anyone. And I see that now. I guess I didn't see that the last few years. Smarter for me to just talk to the people who want to hear what I have to say and literally just block everyone else. I have no need to hear like thing one that almost anybody else says. Like I can't even find it interesting, you know. And sometimes there's shit there's stuff that's written down that is like literally, I think it's like you're reading a science fiction novel, right? And in the novel, they say, "Oh, here's the advertisement in the local paper, or whatever," and it's supposed to be an advertisement for the I don't know Martian Daily News or whatever, right? And you're supposed to read that, and because you're in this fictional world, right? You're in this fictional world, and you go, "Okay, this is the Martian Daily Newspaper," and you buy into that. But I look at regular news stories today, like, and I'm like, am I in the? Is this like something from a movie? Like this is complete and absolute fiction. Like no one could possibly believe this. Like nobody could possibly believe this, but they expect you to, and that's pretty bizarre. So anyway, sports ball guy is also a market guy, and he's like been going back and forth during the week, and he's like, yeah, um, this market's got to calm down. This is, there's going to be a crash. This and that. And I'm like, no, this is the best 6 months to be in the market, and they're going to pump it. They're just going to pump it, pump it, pump it. I said, and I told him, I said on Friday, I'm probably going to buy the ETF, the exchange trade from SPY. So I'm probably going to buy SPY April calls, one contract of that. And I was looking for it at the money, but I couldn't get it at the money with the amount of I only allocated like $1,500 for this. So I got one contract at 405, which is out of the money. So it's currently trading around 395 ish. So it's got to rise to get up into the money. Whatever. It's everything's going fine. The market's going to pump, pump, pump more or less for the next 12 weeks ish, and then it's going to crash for whatever reason. And then they're going to pump it up like crazy at the end of 2023 for a couple of reasons. One, it's an election year, right? 2024 is going to be the election, and Joe Biden needs a good economy. So they will pull every lever and tug every string and twist every fucking knob to make the economy of 2024 a good one, so that the Biden administration can win re-election. Trump is out. Nobody really gives a shit about Ron DeSantis. He may be the competent administrator, but that doesn't excite people. People, they really do vote, their own interests, their own perceived interests anyway. But so that's that. And this guy's like, no, the market's gonna crash. It's gonna go down. The S&P went up like 2.67% by Thursday. It's like that's too much. You can't go up that much in 1 week. I said, just drive it higher. But he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to. He's like, this is irrational. This isn't working. I'm like, you don't understand how the market really works. And this guy used to be a stockbroker, and he knows a lot of rich people. You know what I mean? He still does the golf club thing, and he knows dudes that spend a month in Aspen. You know what I mean? They take a month vacation in Aspen at the end of the year, or whatever, with the islands or whatever the fuck they go on to do. So he still knows a lot of big money people, and somebody like me telling him like, you have no idea how this all works. He's I guess it's a little it's a little too pugnacious of me, and he probably gets a little bit offended, but he pushes back, and I'm like, well, except you're always wrong. Like, except things keep going as crazy as I sound, things keep going kind of the way I say they're going to go. If I make a prediction or, some sort of short-term prognostication, mostly things work out the way I say they will. And he's seen this with other things. Most of the things will work out the way I say they will. So, I don't know, is the trick to understanding the world being a racist, sexist, homophobe, anti-Semite, what else? Misogynist, whatever. All the list of all the bad things. all the bad things list, you should need to be all of those in order to have my magical predictive powers. Hey, I got a one viewer. Make sure to smash up the like button, viewer. Whomever you are, you haven't unsubscribed like I told you to. So if you're not going to unsubscribe, you might as well smash up the like button. So what's going on? We got a couple of things going on. What's it, 12 minutes in already? All right, tonight we're not going to a frozen hilltop in Korea anymore. That was pretty sucky. But the title of tonight's show, Reverse Virtue Signaling, is what you should be doing. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I just thought it was that's a pretty catchy title. There's a couple other ones I came up with too. I got to keep writing these catchy titles down. Also, we got a little pump on Bitcoin. Bitcoin it's hovering around 21,000. So it went from like 16 and change to about 21. We pumped like 30% in a week or 10 days. And so Bitcoin's acting like Bitcoin again. So that's interesting. But tonight I want to introduce you to a man named Craig Douglas. You've probably never heard of Craig Douglas because he didn't die from syphilis in the 1930s, and he apparently he never hugged a horse and cried over a horse that wasn't his. I realize he doesn't have those two accomplishments on his resume, but he does know a few things. And this clip, which is 7 minutes and 24 seconds, 7 minutes 24, he actually starts out mentioning Jordan Peterson weirdly, but it skipped past him. He's talking to a couple of Lyft pros. He's talking to, it's really, and the conversation goes in a way you might not expect Lyft Bros for it to go, but this is, oh, now I got 3 viewers. Look at this. So anyway, this is Craig Douglas, sometimes known as South Narc, or used to be known as South Narc. So let's go down to South Florida and let's see what we can learn from Craig Douglas.
What's the Jordan Peterson quote? A harmless man's not a good man.
Yeah.
Something
and
like
I think
that.
actually
that's very apropos.
It and I you saw this within law enforcement. Like there's predators and there's prey.
Right.
And I'm sure you ran into people who were, whether it be drug or maybe not even, just have a predatory mindset. And
I'll tell you, one, the guy who used to work for me. He was one of our informants, and I first met him when I was a correctional officer with the sheriff's department for the first couple of years. And I'm going to call him JT. Those are his initials. But JT was a black gangster disciple, allegedly, but he never really chose affiliation. But he used to really like raping young white kids that came into the jail. And you could always tell who would coerce into sex because he'd make them shave their eyebrows, shave their head, and then take a large XXL T-shirt from the commissary, the canteen, split it down the middle, and then take like a little ribbon off the bottom and tie it around her waist and make them wear like a woman's house coat. So that's how you knew who JT was fucking in the day room. Was with that he had an archetype. But anyway, he
some twisted shit right there.
Well, it gets worse.
There's a lot of thought going into that.
It gets worse. So he was in a day room when I first came on with the sheriff's department in 1990, and he tried to put a shank in me in a big fight we had, and he didn't get close, but I caught him creeping, and we jumped on him, and he kind of had it palmed. There's no doubt. I mean, I knew he was angling towards me, and I probably pushed it further than I should have, and I broke his arm. I didn't have to, but I did it. So, to make a point to him not to do that. Years later, he's back out on the street, and JT was known as what was called a jack boy, meaning he'd jack other dope dealers, and he always knew who had dope and cash. And a lot of times he would coming, and as I went through my career, and eventually got to narcotics, he would show up, right, and want to give information for various reasons, right? And there's an old adage: today's informant, tomorrow's defendant, because they're all scumbags,
Sure.
right? But anyway, he worked with us several times, and I was the guy he wanted to work with, mainly. Because he had this weird respect for me that went back to that day I broke his arm in that day room. But I remember, and he made some good cases for us. He didn't directly make the case, but he made a case for us that turned 4 ounces of powder into a 40 kilo ultimately hit that we eventually made through casework that started with him. So he was a great informant. And sometimes, he wanted to be paid, and other times he just really didn't care. He was kind of ambivalent about it. It was real weird how he worked in and out. But I remember debriefing him, and as he got comfortable with me over the years, he used to tell me all kinds of heinous shit, right, about what he did and how he did it. But he told me about hitting a Haitian dope dealer in Ocala, Florida. Did a home invasion, and going there, and they got him tied down, and he had a kit. JT had a kit with him, and inside the kit were various things. It's kind of a BTK, a bomb, torture, kill kit. But he's trying to get information about where the stash is at, right? And his favorite thing was he'd pull dude's pants down, and he'd reach in the bag and he'd get a curling iron. He'd plug the curling iron in, and show the guy the curling iron, and most of the time the guy would let him know where the dope or the cash, whatever his hitting was. But a couple times, he had to use the curling iron, and he laughed, and he said, "I never had to stick it in more than once, Craig." So that guy worked for me for a while, and eventually, one night, it's after I retired, I think like 2012, got all cracked up, and there was a 50-something-year-old paraplegic woman who was a scumbag, smoking crack. He home invaded her with this other chick, and ended up taking a butcher knife and a butcher block and literally, like Al-Qaeda style, decapitating her while he was, just went a little overboard that night, trying to find the dope, trying to find the cash. I think it was more about dope that night, but he got convicted of a murder. So that guy used to work for me and worked for me at various times. That's a bad guy.
Yeah.
That's a real bad guy. That's not some disadvantaged dude down on his luck. He was in and out of addiction, but he'd get clean when he came in jail. He's just a fucking bad guy. And there were quite a few of those throughout my career that I interacted with. And when you're around people like that, you realize, okay, there is right and wrong. And the whole modern moral relevancy thing that we have going right now is incredibly troubling, because a lot of people, I think more people than ever, would look at a guy like that and say, it's not a bad guy, it's just a
disadvantaged,
misunderstood
drug
circumstance. No, he's a fucking bad guy. That's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Anybody that can come up with putting a curling iron in your ass, right, to elicit information, right, it's a fucking bad guy. He was. Anybody that decapitates, a paraplegic woman, scumbag or not, and she was a scumbag. Okay, it was scumbag and scumbag stuff. But still in all, took her head off, sawed it off, like cartel style. So, yeah, I had all kinds of people like that in my law enforcement career that I spent a lot of time with, and the lessons that you get really hanging out with those people, that's that informs a lot.
So a couple of lift bros, Power Athlete HQ, right? A couple of whatever jocks That's not a conversation you would expect to hear from him. But Craig Douglas, in that story that he told, and I remember when I heard that, I knew this guy from other things, and I remembered, and I told a story years ago. When I drove car service on Staten Island, there was a Jamaican pot dealer named William, and he used to like me a lot. He'd say, "Oh, Jamesy, man, Jamesy, my favorite driver." And I used to take him from the projects he was living in to the projects he was a security guard / pot dealer. So there was a Jamaican crew selling weed, of course, throughout the projects. And as it invariably happens, the gang there was a falling out. Half the gang went to hit all the weed spots and take all the weed and the cash. And they hit the spot where this guy William was at. And I told the story that what they did was they tied him to a chair. Right? This sounds very similar to what Craig Douglas was doing. And that's why I bookmarked that video years ago. They tie him to a chair. They're ransacking the apartment, find everything. And they asked him, they said, of course, they had guns. They said, have you ever been shot? And William had never been shot, but he's like, yeah, I've been shot. Like, where did you get shot? And he said, I got shot in my hip. You know what I mean? Now he's tied to a chair. The only way they're going to find out if he's really shot in the hip is they got to untie him. If they untie him, of course, now he's going to be brought up to the door, right? So they're like, they didn't want to do it. They're like, we're not going to take that chance. So what they did instead is they went in the kitchen and they turned on the gas burner of the gas stove, and they took like a spoon, like just a regular metal spoon, and they heated it up and they pressed it against his face until it fucking like 3rd-degree burns. It nearly burned through his cheek. And when I knew him, he had a big patch over his face, and he would always have a large oval-shaped burn scar there for the rest of his life. And he would say, "James, man, it's terrorism, man." I said, somebody's got to stop these people. They're terrorism. It's a terrorism. This was like way before 9/11, pre 9/11 stuff. But and I remember thinking to it, like, dude, you got in with these guys. Like you thought it was a good idea to sell drugs for a living. And how did you think it was going to end up? Like, how did you think that was going to go? Federico Vasconcelos, he will not unsubscribe. And apparently I can't make it. Enjoys the monologues and heavy stuff. So listen, this is, we'll try and lighten it up. We'll try to lighten it up. But the point is, there's ugly problems that have to be solved. And that when Craig Douglas is talking about this dude, right? He says he first met him when he was in the sheriff's department as a corrections officer. So he worked in the jails, and then he later worked in SWAT teams and stuff like that. So, understanding what happens in jail, that what do you do about these people? His explanation of, well, this guy became my informant later on, years. Well, why would you let this guy be your informant? And the guy wanted to work with him because Craig Douglas understands predator versus prey. He understands that these people speak a language of violence and force. That's it. Anything else you hear or anything they say is just bullshit till they can get close enough to you to do whatever it is they're going to do to you. But if you don't have experience with these sort of people, you don't know that. So, you can be told all sorts of dumb stories about and making you sympathetic to fucking monsters, right? It was done with Michael King Jr., or they call Martin Luther King. It was done with George Floyd. And it will be done on a smaller level by less talented prevaricators for people like JT. But Craig Douglas works with this guy because, one, they need him to make cases, right? He's going to make cases. He's useful, two, he wants his paycheck. You got to listen, work with this guy, even knowing how bad this dude is. So a lot of stuff is tolerated. A lot of stuff is more than tolerated, right? It's even protected because the informants are really good informants. You get these big drug busts or whatever. You get your name in the headlines. the captain's happy, the chief of police is happy, the mayor's happy, the voters are happy because look, we're doing something. But there's a reality here that this dude, and there's a plenty of other ones like him, they just fucking create carnage everywhere they go. And it would be much better, rather than just breaking their arm, is to end them, right? To find a legal way to end them, right? How the issues of crime and punishment are really issues of how do people who live by the agreements, live by the law. How do law-abiding people protect themselves from the type of monsters that are out there? And that's not a conversation people are allowed to have. Everyone says, "Well, just kill them all. We'll just kill them all. We'll just throw them in the wood chipper. We'll kill them all. We'll kill them all." Well, I see all these people think they're so fucking smart. They're like, I've got a super high IQ. I'm 2 standard deviations above normies. Oh, really? Well, what would you do about a guy like JT? Kill them all. Kill them all. Like, that's the 85 IQ answer. So what the fuck do we need you? What do we need you when you're 2 standard deviations above the fucking above the norm? Who fucking needs you? We don't fucking need you, right? If your ideas about that are at best fucking 85 IQ, your ideas about everything else are 85 IQ. So, but the nature of these people with their, I have one genetic characteristic, and so because I was born with this characteristic, which is not an accomplishment, right? It's you being born with a characteristic. Everyone should listen to. Well, that's not how it works. So I've thought about that a lot, and I was thinking about, again, how do people protect themselves? How is that done? Most people are never going to meet someone like JT, but you know what? There's likely to be more and more and more of these dudes as everyone is high all the time. Everyone's on weed all the time. Like the amount of legalized weed does not make these guys go away, right? It just increases their number because they always want weed and cash. And the more weed and cash there is out there, the more JTs will be created. You know what I mean? And they'll have a wider population to feed off of. You know what I mean? They're the predators, and these dumb potheads are the prey. Another comment is different. Virgil Doc, Purple Heart. Welcome to the show, sir. So your comment, I replied to your comment on the last video. I thought you would get in particular that you would like that Outpost Harry story. So, understanding that the state tolerates and even promotes some of this for its own reasons, it shows that somebody hasn't really thought through everything. And I remember one time somebody was saying something like the American Revolution was a rarity because it was really, it wasn't a bottom-up revolution. It was just rich people arguing with other rich people. And I see that now. There's a famous quote by Ben Franklin, right? Supposedly, after they were done drafting the Constitution, Ben Franklin's walking back to wherever the fuck he's walking back to, and there's like some serving wench, some whatever. There's always some mouthy broad out there, and she says, "What have you wrought for us, Mr. Franklin?" And the quote, I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but it's very telling. The quote is, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And people think like, wow, that's so profound. But think that one through. Think that one through. Right? The founding fathers created the Constitution, but it's your responsibility to keep it. You had no input in it. You didn't decide what goes in, what goes out, what comes first, what comes third. Like you had no say in its input, right? In its crafting, in its construction. But it's your responsibility to keep and maintain it. Well, dudes, what about all you rich fucking pricks who spent all that time alone in the legislature? Like, what were you doing? You make it, but it's our responsibility to take care of it, right? So that really that acknowledges is a couple things, right? One, that it can be destroyed. If Ben Franklin and these other guys were really as smart as they like to think they were, why couldn't you come up with a mechanism for the republic to defend itself? In theory, right? We pledge allegiance to this. You know, the cops and soldiers, they say, you know, I will protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. But there's no mechanism built into the Constitution to allow it to defend itself from domestic enemies, right? A foreign army at the border, duh, anybody can see what that is, right? At least, you know, because of the oath is foreign and domestic. The threats are two, right? An external threat and an internal threat. Where is the mechanism for dealing with internal threats in the Constitution? A legal mechanism. Where is it? Like, so, and recently there was this, like the Supreme Court ruling, the one Bruin, the one that Clarence Thomas did, the Second Amendment ruling, overturned a law that was on the books in New York State for 102 years. So a law was passed that is against the federal Constitution, and it was enforced for 102 years, right? Or allowed to stand for 102 years until finally the Supreme Court said, no, we got to fix this. Now that's a fucking long ass time for a mistake to go on, right? And the reason why that happens is because there's no good mechanism that's easy to use that when a law that is obviously against the Constitution can be immediately struck down. There's no mechanism to do that. And there's no negative consequence to the guys who write the laws or vote on those laws. That is what is missing from any rule set, okay? There are predators, there are human predators, okay? And you need to defend yourself against them. And if you're going to design a government or society or whatever, you have to understand you don't live in a perfect world. There will be there are competing groups that are going to look at what you have and try to take it. So again, it's super easy to see, you know, to look at the border and see a bunch of foreigners standing there with rifles and go, holy shit, we got a fight on our hands. But the people who weaken and destroy things internally, those who betray the Constitution, you know, the founding fathers really didn't think it through, right? They just, we crafted it and it's up to you to keep it. What have you wrought for us, Mr. Franklin? A republic, madam, if you can keep it. Why the fuck is it it's a job of the lower classes to keep the fucking republic that mostly benefits the upper classes in line? And that's why everything falls apart. There's an old saying, it's an Italian saying, a fish rots from the head. All these things start at the top. So America 2.0, whatever that's going to look like, is going to have to be different. There's going to have to be a way to enforce the rule set from domestic or internal attacks. The external ones are easy and obvious. It's the internal ones that have to be dealt with. There has to be a really you know, good mechanism for that, and the Constitution doesn't have it. It doesn't have that. No Constitution has that, because at the end of the day, it's fucking elite rich cunts making up rules for everyone else to follow that they're not going to follow themselves. So something to think about, something to meditate on. You know what I mean? When you think about a rule set, when you think about what's going to work and what doesn't work. Which brings us to, I'm going to transition now. We're going to go to some Bitcoin. I didn't take the videos, but Sam Bankman-Fried, the double genius from MIT, the double degreed MIT genius from Jane Street, who you know, whatever, stole $10 billion. I just saw the other day, amazingly, they found $5 billion. Well, and Sam Bankman-Fried is now willing to give the U.S. government back half of what he stole. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how desperate this Jew has to be to say, I will give you back half of what I stole. You know what I mean? That is one desperate small hat. You know what I mean? When one, they never offer to give back money ever, but I'll give you back half. I'll give you back half. He's keeping the other half, of course, but I'll give you back half. So he's offering to give the government the money back, but that's not going to work because the underlings have already made the deal. You know what I mean? They've already made the deal. The case has already started. They haven't had his trial yet, but they're not gonna unmake this deal. You know what I mean? Like I said, that ugly, the less than attractive girl and some Chinamen. And now he's desperately. There's a dude that runs a foreign exchange called Binance. I don't know the guy's name, Chinese guy, and he lives in Dubai. And I knew he was going to do this. He's blaming the chink. He's blaming the CEO of Binance did something behind the scenes of blah 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 blah. He's desperately like twisting and turning to try and get out of this. But the thought that he's actually going to give back half the money he stole, I howled when I saw it. You know, they just happen to find $5 billion that they're willing to return. They're willing to return to, give to, I guess, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York to distribute to whatever the victims. But I really don't think that's going to work because, like I said, this guy screwed up a lot of shit. He made campaign finance donations in the tens of millions of dollars. This whole thing cannot come crashing down for one yid. That's just isn't going to happen. You know what I mean? He can be as elite as he wants to be, and this can happen in as slow motion as he can make it happen, or his lawyers can make it happen. But the result is inevitable. He's not getting away with this. You're not getting away with this. So that's fun to watch. But the other thing about, and I mentioned this in the past, the reason why Bitcoin is different than everything else, and that whatever America 2.0 will be built on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has its rule set is enforced by your own self-interest. So this next video. Okay, this is the one this is the Greenpeace video. It's 1 minute 36 seconds, and it's telling you, how the only way you can save the planet is, we just got to destroy Bitcoin. Here, 1 minute 36 seconds.
This is Sweden, one of the leading industrial nations in Western Europe, home to 10.5 million people and some of the world's great companies. Yet, there is now a cryptocurrency that uses even more energy every year than the entire nation of Sweden. Bitcoin. Bitcoin's wasteful use of energy rivals most mid-sized nations. These gigantic crypto mining operations are sucking up obscene amounts of energy and becoming a major source of climate change and global pollution. Scientists estimate that if Bitcoin becomes widely adopted, the emissions alone could push the planet past a catastrophic 2°C threshold that would cause runaway climate change. It all comes from something called proof of work, a complex and outdated verification system that requires a massive number of computers using enormous amounts of energy from coal, fossil fuel gas, and other polluting sources. Bitcoin's constantly growing mining operations are plunging us towards a global environmental crisis. And the worst part about it all is it can be avoided. By a change to the software code, Bitcoin could virtually eliminate the energy-wasting mining. There are just a few dozen decision makers running and backing Bitcoin's polluting operations who must be persuaded to move Bitcoin to a new software code. Plus innovators like Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk, and a bunch of Wall Street banks. The cost to Bitcoin is almost nothing, but the cost to our planet could be devastating. Let's change the code, not the climate. Go to cleanupbitcoin.com.
See that? Right? So, we're going to blow, it's going to burn the planet. We're all going to die. It uses more electricity than Sweden. Oh my God. Oh, and all that will be fixed if we just change the code. Here's the thing. Bitcoin is the original, right? It's the original. Everything else is a copy of Bitcoin. every other one is a copy of Bitcoin, right? And they say, with just a few dozen decision makers and Elon Musk or whatever, that's not how shit works, bro. Not how it works. Okay? You can change Bitcoin anytime you want. You can change the code. If all these other cryptos have changed the code, they just literally, they copied Bitcoin, changed what they wanted to change, and then they ran with it. Okay? So if you want to change the code, but you're not going to convince me that that's Bitcoin. The Bitcoin, the proof of work system, right? That's the real Bitcoin. And you aren't going to convince me to change. Why should I change for you? You lying fucking communist rat bastard. We're not burning the planet alive. You know, Bitcoin uses the same amount of energy as like Christmas lights in America. So but they think, oh, it's so easy. Just go, we've got the 12 influencers and we'll get Elon Musk and then we'll change. Well, how come you haven't changed? That video is like 7 months old or something like that. It's recent. It's doomed to fail because the rule set is I am, as a Bitcoiner, I'm looking out for my own interests, right? And you aren't going to convince me that there's any benefit to doing what you say, right? So it's an easy external threat to deal with. But the consensus that you have to convince everybody, it's not 12 people in a room and 2 Wall Street banks. Yeah, go ahead, give that a shot. You have to convince everybody that already holds Bitcoin. And how are you going to do that, right? The entire model, like I said, like Ben Franklin said, we created the republic. It's your job to keep it, madam. And I guess her sons, right? And your progeny must keep it. We created it for you, and you must keep it. You need to rethink. You need to have a rule set. You need to have a rule set that allows for the defense of the rule set. And Bitcoin has that because it's consensus governance. Everyone has to agree. If everyone doesn't agree, it doesn't go through. So you have a lot of people that you have to convince, and they already know you're a liar. You know what I mean? So that's that. So, and when I heard that, and the fact that there was the other Jewish guy who was also an MIT guy, amazingly, who came up with the Bitcoin Internet Protocol 119, and he said, well, you got to implement it because this and that. And literally everyone ignored it because we don't give a shit. You don't tell us what to do. This is our attitude when people tell us what to do.
It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G.
Snoop Dogg.
You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.
That's I love that Snoop Dogg clip. I realize Snoop Dogg is not, whatever. He's not cool anymore. He's like the boomer rap guy I know, but he used to be an actual Crip. I think. The point is, we're not doing it. Fuck you. We're not doing it. We're not listening to you ever. And one of the things I try to explain to this sports podcast guy is Bitcoiners are fucking crazy. Like, we appear very, very, very crazy. And, we're fine with that. We're absolutely fine with that. What we're looking to do is create a new rule set that benefits everybody. And obviously, we're going to be pissing people off along the way. But anyway, yes, guys like South Narc have a lot to teach. And the guy actually has a company where I'll show you a brief South Narc clip. It's an advertisement for this guy, but what you think works and doesn't work, what you think is necessary to do difficult things, is you don't really know. So here's and again, this is it's a commercial, but it's kind of a commercial that they made for this training class that Mr. Douglas runs. It's pretty good. I think it's like 1:30 or something like that. It's a fun clip.
The ShivWorks Extreme Close Quarter Concepts ECQC class is an overview of functional handgun skills at 0 to 5 feet, which we like to say requires an interdisciplinary approach to examining that problem. We're to take things that you already know probably, good modern isosceles pistol shooting, but we're going to look at that through the lens of a clinch, a ground fight, confined in crowded space. So your shooting is going to have to change and adapt quite a bit. We're going to look at other skills that you may have: Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Greco-Roman wrestling, and mixed martial arts. However, now in a criminal assault context where there are guns, knives, and possibly a second guy coming in, that's going to have to change and adapt too. We're going to make these adaptations to these orthodoxies that you're already familiar with, combine them synergistically, come up with something cohesive, and pressure test our theories with protective equipment, marking cartridges, and full contact. The idea is that no one walks away from the training wondering if something works or not. I'm Craig Douglas, the founder of ShivWorks. This is Extreme Close Quarter Concepts.
So that's like a commercial. He runs like a weekend class where if you go there, you will be humiliated. You will get your ass kicked, possibly more than once. But it will dramatically increase your survivability in a really bad spot. And there's some people I'm sure saying, "Well, I'm not a drug person. I'm not a SWAT cop. I'm not going to be, this is never going to touch me." All right, perhaps it never will touch you, but I hope you're never walking to your car at the shopping mall. You know what I mean? Like with your kids or something like that, and somebody like I hope that never happens. I hope you're never, have packages in your arms and, you're not really looking around because whatever, this doesn't happen to you. And this is a million miles from you. When you think, I don't know what you think is going to work, but interestingly, in that clip, you heard him say, and if you go on YouTube, you can go on YouTube, look at Craig Douglas stuff, tons of video, people that took his classes. Basically, the way to survive a knife fight or a gunfight from 0 to 5 feet is Greco-Roman wrestling. No shit. He says Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but everything he teaches is Greco-Roman wrestling. So the shit that worked in 776 BC still works today, even in, it has to be modified a little, but it's absolutely fascinating watching him do it. Again, if you're curious about that sort of stuff, you can just go look him up on YouTube. But that's knowing what works, right? And adapting it to today's problems. That's arguably what everyone's supposed to do with anything, right? So there has to be money, there has to be a rule set, there has to be a way to make sure that civilization survives. That's why I like that clip, because they're playing like the fucking string quartet or something, and he's in a suit and sitting in a leather chair, and he says, "We will make modifications to the orthodoxies," or whatever. I like that juxtaposition with you sort of guys rolling around and giving each other a particularly hard time, because what is necessary to keep civilization alive is not what you think, and it's frequently hard, and it's like really hard, and you need to master this, and a big part of civilization is the economy. So is the economy going to go well for the next couple of years? Yeah, they're going to get by. You know what I mean? But long term, there are threats out there, and you should think about what that looks like to you. And if you, like I said before, if what you want to do is trust your life savings, right, to a group of central bankers, you know what I mean? Go ahead and do it. It's just unwise. You know what I mean? I think it's an unwise move, but you do you, as they say. You might want to rethink what's really necessary when fucking shit goes sideways. What's necessary for you to come out on the other end, alive, You know what I mean? Not come out and walk away from it, not get carried out feet first. You know what I mean? That's and I don't just mean it again. It's like I'll never be in a car with a drug dealer or blah 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 blah. Well, I hope your kids never will, or no one, like whatever. But there's scary, bad, difficult things. How do you fix that? How do you make sure that that doesn't happen to you or the people you care about? And thinking about that, not in the way that Ben Franklin does, like, madam, I've created a republic. You must keep it, right? Where you think to yourself, I'm responsible for my own life. You know what I mean? Most people, they look at shit like that and they go, I don't want to shoot nobody. What do we have the police for? What do we have the cops for? Why do we have the courts? Why do we have the prisons? It doesn't always work. Things don't work there for a lot of different reasons. And that Craig Douglas clip, because people who are fucking monsters, right, are useful to the police. So those monsters are allowed to roam free. And, basically, as long as you're getting your paycheck and your fucking pension and they're not fucking with you, so that needs to change. You know what I mean? That shifting the responsibility and the burden onto others is going to have to change, because it always ends in tears. It never, ever ends well. It never ends well. So that's that. That's pretty much this week's show. Do I have anything else? I don't know if I have it. Any more videos? Not really. Well, yeah, that's a bit, try. Okay, all right, here, I'll tell you what, I got one more video. I don't know why I have it so funny. This one's funny. This one's lighthearted. For people who enjoy LARPing, you know what I mean? You can LARP in a way that and still live your life. This is a little clip. It's only like 23 seconds. But if you're a big fan of AC/DC, the 80s rock band from Australia, you'll appreciate this. I think this was a TikTok video, but it was cute and it made me laugh. And I thought about how much fun it would be to hang out with these people. So here's 23 seconds that hopefully will cheer you up. So there it was. It was cute, whatever, some couple there, I don't know, they work at the Renaissance Fair or whatever. They got their apartment looked like a fucking medieval dungeon or something. But, they're having fun with their lives. I guarantee you, hanging around, being around those people on a weekend, probably be one of the best weekends of your life. And they obviously have a sense of humor about themselves. It's important for you to try and do that. Even though it is a challenge sometimes. So, well, that's what I have for you this week. We're coming up 55 minutes, 44 seconds. The stream snipers have been in and out. So whatever, the feds never terribly far away from this show. So yeah, listen, that Martin Luther King, was really not much more than he was a communist who liked to drink and take church funds and have sex with white prostitutes and then beat the crap out of them. That he was really a monster, and he gets a federal holiday. This type of rot, this type of internal rot, needs to be cleaned out. And then, like I said, there's no good legal mechanism to do this. So when it all collapses, and eventually it will collapse, you want to be aware that that's going to happen, and why it's going to happen. I got now 2 more comments. Who's in the comments? Judas Fly Chai, base Percy Mission guy. Welcome, Mr. Fly Chai. We need red pilling on MLK. What do you mean red pilling? How come you never ask all the things that don't exist in Martin Luther King myth, right? Supposedly he was shot by a guy named James Earl Ray, a dude from Tennessee who was a known racist. He's dropping N-bombs. James Earl Ray was a very old and sickly man. And this is the days before health insurance, right? You just got on. Well, listen, how have you been? It's probably been blazing away in the hills of California. You know, getting your Uber Eats, your Persian rice, and whatever else you got, the chicken kebabs. Some kind of Persian Uber Eats driver. But at any rate, James Earl Ray supposedly shot Michael King Jr., that everyone called Martin Luther King Jr., but he never changed his name legally. James Earl Ray had liver disease, and the only way he could get medical care, because he couldn't afford it himself, was he pled guilty, or he did some kind of federal plea to shooting Martin Luther King so he could be sent to federal prison and he could get the medical treatment that would extend his life. So James Earl Ray definitely, took that plea and helped close up that narrative for them. Why did they decide Martin Luther King needed to be, or Michael King Jr. needed to be a martyr? I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe he got out of line. Maybe they were afraid that they were going to find out about the drinking and the white prostitutes and how he used to like to beat the crap out of white prostitutes. Like, maybe, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, maybe their control over the information was not as absolute as it is today. So that's a possibility. But he's served his purpose. You know what I mean, and continues to serve his purpose. Years ago I was in Brownsville at night, and the first time I heard somebody say "Negro with a dream day." You know what I mean? Now they didn't say Negro, right? They said another N word, but they called today Negro with a dream day. You know what I mean? These two black dudes were like, "Yo, man, you gonna work on Negro with a dream day?" The guy like, "Nah, fuck that. I already do too much for the plantation." And so like I said, they did not say, they were using an N word. It just wasn't Negro. And I always, whenever this holiday comes up, and people go, "Oh, it's Martin Luther King Day," I go, "It's blankety blank with a dream day," and I always kind of laugh. I think we thought it was funny. I've been around some people who I don't think they intended to be quite as humorous as they were, but and the fact that you can't say that, you can't drop N-bombs anywhere anymore, makes that story even better. So, this is the way we celebrate. This is the way we celebrate Negro with a Dream Day. I mean, you could go out and, I don't know, live in a mud hut. You could move into a mud hut or whatever, like do something particularly African, as a celebration. But that's that. We now have St. George. Remember, St. George Floyd died doing what he loved, which was taking drugs and breaking the law. Anyway, so let's we're at an hour. I said we're going to keep these short and sweet. So you might have to reload, watch the whole thing all over again. I'm going to put up the banner that says smash up the like button. If you won't unsubscribe, you better start smashing up the like button. And then I'm going to play the outro music, and then I will talk to you guys again next week.